House of Israel International Services are held weekly at 3601 Rose Lake Drive, Charlotte, North Carolina, 28217, 11 a.m. Saturday mornings and 7 p.m. Thursday evenings, Eastern Time. This live broadcast is made possible through financial contributions from brothers and sisters like you. Your financial support is greatly appreciated. Thank you. Motivating. Inspiring. Challenging. Encouraging. Deepening. Strengthening. And enhancing your faith. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to House of Israel International's live worship service.
Again, we are looking at the 28 blessings of Deuteronomy 28, and we are in part 3. Deuteronomy 28 captures the benefits of Torah-observant life and sums them up in 14 verses. The beauty of these blessings are they are corporate and individually focused. Now, when I say corporate, there were blessings that were corporate, meaning that was for all of Israel. If all of Israel obeyed, this is what's going to happen. How many of you remember Jehovah promised to take them into the land, but the ones who knew the promise never made it in except for 2. Only 2 people who came out of Egypt had faith. And that's sad. Jehovah in the midst of them doing mighty works. You hear me? Making water come out of rocks, bringing manna from heaven, causing quail to drop out of the sky, delivering them, healing them, making sure that all of their needs were met, sending his word, healing them, their shoes didn't wear out. And only 2 people had faith. And there were the 2 that actually entered in. Then Jehovah comes along in Hebrews and says, don't be like them. For the same gospel that is being preached to you was also preached to them. But they didn't mix what they heard with faith. They didn't trust me. They walked by sight. And when they didn't see what they wanted to see, they murmured, they complained. They even tried to mutiny. Conspired against the leader. Well, we can hear from Jehovah too. You see, they conspired. This is what you'll do when you don't have faith. If you don't walk by faith, you're going to walk by sight. If you walk by sight, you expect to see something, and if you don't see something, then you change your point of view. Well, I'm going down this. Well, maybe God is saying, well, maybe he's not saying, well, I don't see, well, I don't know, well, maybe he's saying do this, well, maybe. That's instability. And an unstable person is not going to receive anything. When you ask, you have to ask in faith, not waver, trust, believe. That means you got to turn your eyes off. And so the beauty of these blessings is that even though they're given to all of Israel, individuals can walk in them. And we have the example of Joshua and Caleb. Jehovah is not only speaking to the nation, but to the individuals within the nation. The blessings are for those who obey, and the curses are for those who disobey. The people knew what Jehovah expected of them. There were no surprises. And so they knew when they obeyed, they would be blessed. They knew when they disobeyed, they would be cursed, and yet they were surprised when the curses came. The people had incentives to do the right thing and be blessed, but they also could not complain when they disobeyed and experienced the curses because they knew it was their own doing. One of the problems that we have in our society today is finger pointing. We're quick to blame somebody else for the things that are going on in our lives. And see, I used to have the mindset, and sometimes I have to repent of that even today, is that my mindset is that if I want everything to go well in my life, then I got to control everything and everybody in it. You hear what I'm saying? I have to control everything, and I have to control everybody in it. Because if I can't control everything and control everybody in it, then there's some chances that some things is going to go wrong. And when things go wrong, I know exactly who to blame. Because if they hadn't done this, or if they had done this, this wouldn't have happened. Well, today, things happen. And some things happen to show me that I'm not in control. Do you hear what I'm saying? So I had to learn to let go of trying to control people. Because we will do that, folks. We have to be in, if we've got a control mindset, we feel that we have to control people around us. In Deuteronomy, the laws are summarized and interpreted. Thus, Deuteronomy is in essence a covenant renewal document. As we continue on in the 28 blessings of Deuteronomy 28, last week we looked at numbers 1 through 10. Actually, in the last two teachings. But we picked up in 1 and went all the way through 10, and today we're going to look at blessings number 11 and following, beginning in Deuteronomy 28, verse 6. As I look at the blessings of Deuteronomy, folks, I am so encouraged because it is these were as a Baptist, as I was memorizing scripture, and I encourage people, listen, you all need to memorize scripture. Make a point of memorizing. Because here's the thing, that whatever consumes our mind is going to affect our attitude. And most of the things that consume our minds, especially in today's culture, is worry and fear. For the last 4 years, we have been inundated with fear-mongering. And those of you who listen to talk radio, the radio waves, the television waves, those who listen to the news, I remember some of the old Pentecostal leaders would tell us, don't listen to the news. The news is always bad news. If you turn on the news, they're going to tell you who got shot. They're going to tell you who got murdered. They're going to tell you who got broke in. They're going to tell you who died. They're going to tell you who broke out of prison. They're going to tell you, it's just bad news all the time. And this stuff gets in our head. It is this kind of news that causes people to move into certain neighborhoods, because some people think that if I move into a neighborhood that is full of people like me, then I can control and keep out influences that are not like me. So homogeneous neighborhoods begin to develop. Suburbia began to develop. People thought the problems were in the hood. They were in the urban community. What they didn't realize is that all the problems that were in the urban community came from somewhere. All the drugs that were on the streets came from somewhere. The prostitutes who were walking the streets weren't prostituting to the locals. These people came from somewhere. And now in suburbia, they realize that they've got as many problems in suburban neighborhoods as they got in urban neighborhoods. The schools in suburban neighborhoods are failing. People are they got drugs in there. They got young teenage pregnancies in there. They got all kinds of things going on in there. People were of the mindset, it's easier for me to love my neighbor if my neighbor looked like me. Well, it doesn't work. Oh, boy, those people have moved into the neighborhood. It's time to move further out. All you got to do is look in the mirror and you'll see where the problem is. You follow me? And so Jehovah is saying to his people, listen, the things that I want for you is really going to be you focusing on me. That's the key. That if you hearken, diligently hearken, hear and obey these commands that I'm giving you today, all of these blessings will come upon you, and these blessings will actually overtake you. You will be stumbling in blessings. You'll be tripping over blessings. This is what he says now. I'm not adding to this. It's what he says. But then we come into a culture that rejects all of the Old Testament but want to strip the blessings away and connect it to tithe and offerings. You're not under the law. Well, if I'm not under the law, then the blessings that is contained in the law are not mine. If I'm not under the law, that means that I'm not keeping the law that all of these blessings are contained in. Now, there is a flip side of not obeying these commands that you say I don't have to keep. That means I'm not going to obey these commands. Thus lies the problem. So if we can create religion and now we see all of these curses. Well, we need to identify these curses, because what we're noticing from psychology and all of these things is that these curses seems to be generational. So now we've got some generational curses. And then we've got some psychological issues that are rooted in our childhood. So now we need some counseling. And now we've got to do inner healing. And we've got to take a person all the way back to their childhood. And now that we get them in touch with their childhood, because there's been some arrested development. And because of this arrested development, this person has never really gotten over this trauma. And because of all of this trauma, this person has got excuses for why things aren't working. Well, it's my mother. It's the neighborhood that I grew up in. It's because my dad never told me he loved me. It's because I was rejected as a child. Well, I got a news flash. The issue with me, with my family, with my generation was we were told that we did not have to keep those laws. All you needed to do was get saved. If you got saved, everything would be okay. Get saved. Okay, I'm saved. Now what do I need to do? You need to go to church. If I go to church, everything's going to be okay. Well, now I'm going to church and everything's still not okay. Well, are you giving your tithe? More tithe. Are you serving? See, now we start making stuff up. Well, maybe it's this. Well, maybe it's that. Well, I know what it is. It's a generational curse. Well, where does the generational curse come from? The generational curse comes from fathers. You didn't teach your children to obey these commands. And if you don't, then the iniquity, the lawlessness, the iniquity of the father is going to be passed down to the children, to the third and fourth generation. Thus, a generational curse. So how can you get deliverance from a generational curse and still not keep the law that contained the generational curse to begin with? Well, all we need to do is bring in the experts. Let's get some buckets. Let's get some paper towels. Let's get some folks who's going to cast out demons. Now, we were in a deliverance mecca. We had all the expert deliverers come through. You got people burping and blowing wind and throwing up and snot dripping all over the place, and they rolling all over the floor while you're commanding demons to come out. And they get up and still, we're not under the law. Well, where you think the curse came from? I never understood it in a charismatic church. Father gave me a message to preach called Deliverance Through Obedience. Now, I'm a Sunday worshiping elder in a congregation that is known for its apostolic prophetic ministry, its casting out devils, and I didn't understand the message that he gave me, that if you want deliverance, your deliverance is going to come through your obedience. Until you decide that you're going to obey these commands, you have no right to the blessings. If you don't have rights to the blessings, then all you got is the curses. And I'm going to tell you something, folks. I don't care where you go, and I don't care how many people pray over you and how many people command spirits to come out of you. Until you decide that you're going to obey the commands of YeHoVaH, you're doomed to the curses of the law. But the religious people want to tell us that you're cursed because you're keeping the law. Well, that's not what the law says. The law says you're cursed because you're not keeping the law. So the religious leaders are saying you're cursed because you're keeping the law, but the people who are not keeping the law are all dealing with generational curses. You hear what I'm saying? They got ministries specializing in deliverance. Oh, you need some deliverance? Take them to the back room. Now, Deuteronomy 28 says to us that if you hearken to obey these commands, you're going to operate in the blessings. And what are the blessings? We'll pick up here, Deuteronomy 28, verse 6, is actually, as we look at the word blessing, it is the word barakah from the word benediction. And last week, you remember, we talked about how Jehovah told Aaron, he told Moses to speak unto Aaron, unto his son, saying, on this wise you shall bless the children of Israel. In other words, you're going to pronounce a blessing on them. You're going to speak my blessings over them simply by putting my name on them. And we're going to break this down today, folks. It says, on this wise shall you bless the children of Israel, say unto them, Jehovah bless thee and keep thee. Jehovah make his face shine upon thee and be gracious unto thee. Jehovah lift up his countenance upon thee and give thee peace. And they shall put my name upon the children of Israel, and I will bless them. So where's the blessings coming from? It's coming from him. He and his name is one. So the blessings, where's the blessings coming from? The blessings are coming from him. What are the blessings based on? They're based on obedience to his commandments. See? So he's the one who blesses. Now the word contains blessings and curses. The word contains life and death. Do you hear what I'm saying? Your actions decide what you draw to you. Now, I don't want to get into the laws of attractions, but let me tell you something, folks. You attract stuff. You draw stuff to you. The spirit, the attitude, everything, every spirit, you know, and I learned some valuable lessons in deliverance. You know, when you deal with gangs, see, the natural manifestation of human behavior can easily be connected to demonic force. Spirits travel in gangs. When Paul talks about principalities, powers, spiritual wickedness, rulers of darkness, you've got gang activity going on. And you can see this when Michael, you know, Daniel is praying and the angel goes up to take the message, and then the angel is dispersed to deliver the message, and they got attacked by spirits. And when the angel finally came to Daniel, says, Daniel, Father heard you the day you prayed. Daniel's down here fasting 21 days. Charismatics come along and say, you know, you need to do a Daniel fast. Daniel is not knowing what's going on in the realm of the spirit, but there's demonic warfare that is hindering the messenger from responding to Daniel's prayer and delivering the message to Daniel. This is what's going on in the spirit realm, folks. You can't see it, but it's there. There's supernatural activity that is beyond your visibility. And when you begin to walk in the spirit and understand spiritual things, you'll understand that you draw certain things with your words. Your attitude, your words. You know, you think I'm wrong? You walk into a place and just smile. You smile at people. You can come up to somebody who's just as mean as a rattlesnake and says, bless you. Bless me. Bless me for what? Oh, I just wanted to pronounce a blessing on you. What a wonderful day. What do you mean this is a wonderful day? This is not a wonderful day, but it is. You're alive, right? Yeah, I'm alive, but my life stinks. You know, but you're engaging in conversation, and over the course of that conversation, guess what? The stronger spirit is going to prevail. Get sad and see what kind of traffic you draw. When you get sad, you draw traffic, certain traffic. When you're up to no good, you draw certain traffic. You see, you're always attracting. People who've been abused have abusive mindset, mentality, and they emit abuse. I'm an abuse victim. And people who like abusing people recognize that spirit and is drawn right to them, which is why they go from one abusive relationship to another. Because there's atmosphere. Let me tell you something, folks. You are a human being, right? But you have a spirit. Now, you're either a human being with a spirit or you are a spirit with a body. But here's the deal. Your spirit is bearing witness to some spirit. See, the Holy Spirit bears witness with our spirit that we are children of the Almighty. But if the Holy Spirit is not bearing witness with your spirit, what spirits are bearing witness with your spirit? Because your spirituality, the spirit that you're operating in, is emitting spiritual signals that is being picked up by spirits. And you're either going to draw the Holy Spirit to you, or you're going to draw all those other spirits that live in people who are controlled by those spirits. Now, I don't want to get into spiritual warfare, but you're drawing stuff. And you may not even be realizing it. You ever had somebody come up to you and say, are you okay? Are you okay? What makes a person come to you and ask you if you are okay? Selah. Is everything okay? Well, something looks like it's wrong. Even the undiscerning people who couldn't even discern spirits, that's why they're asking. Are you okay? They don't discern. They know naturally something's not right, even though they may not know exactly what's wrong. You follow me? But they know something's wrong. And because they have some form of compassion, they are drawn to you by your demeanor. You're sending out signals. People send out flirty signals. People send out, I'm nasty and I know it. And you got you got spirits who are looking for nasty spirits. You follow me? And these things draw. Just like the eyes of Jehovah is going throughout the whole earth looking for someone whose heart is perfect toward him so that he might show himself mighty through them. These other spirits, well, you go and say, no, I'm just going through the whole earth. What are you looking for? Their spirit's looking for trouble, and you're a good candidate. That's why, when I say to you that every day, this is the day Jehovah has made, I shall rejoice and be glad in it. But what determines how you wake up is how you went to sleep. Think about it. If you go to sleep angry, you wake up angry. So you need to change your attitude before you go to bed. Otherwise, throughout the entire night, you got visitations from spirits. They enter into your sleep. You got dreams and nightmares and horror dreams and visions. And so these blessings that are built into the Torah is also associated with obedience, just as the curses that are built into the Torah is associated to the disobedience. So what you do will determine what is drawn to you. If you want to see where you are, just look around. What are you drawing? What kind of people? You can tell a lot about your personality by your friends. Evil communications corrupt good character. Birds of a feather flock together. And so, as we begin to look at all of these, blessings number 11 is verse 6, blessed shall thou be when thou come in. Now, understand that this Deuteronomy 28 is Moses giving, he's recounting the commandments, the expectations of Jehovah before they enter into the land. Jehovah has already promised them that he's going to bring them into a land flowing with milk and honey. He's already said to them he's going to give them houses they didn't build, vineyards they didn't plant, wells they didn't dig. And so he's saying, when I bring you into the land, you're going to be blessed. That's the whole point of bringing you in. I'm bringing you out of bondage. I'm bringing you into a land. Well, how do we apply that? See, when you come into the kingdom, there is a realm of blessings, promised blessings, just like they were promised the promised land. See, the promised land was a promise long before it became a reality. It is called the promised land because Jehovah promised it to them. But we had a generation, and then we have history to where they were spewed out of the land even after they came into the land. But you got a generation who heard the promise, knew the promise, but never entered into the promise because of their disobedience. So just because you got promises, the promises are associated with obeying the commands of Jehovah. And so he says, you're going to be blessed when you come in. And then he says, you're going to be blessed when you go out. Well, the way I associate this, he's going to bring us into the land, and then there are going to be times when I might leave. There's certainly times when, depending on, if you remember, he gave each tribe a geographical territory, with the exception of Levi. Now, we know that Judah was given the land of Judah, wherein is Jerusalem. And this was the place that became the place where Jehovah put his name. He says, now, my name is on you, but I'm going to place my name in a certain location, and 3 times a year, you're going to have to come up to this location. Now, to come up to this location means they would have to leave their geographical territory. So when you leave your geographical territory, when you go out of the land that has been allotted to you, because all of Israel wasn't allotted to anybody. The land of Judah was given to the tribe of Judah. Manasseh was given to Manasseh. Ephraim was given to Ephraim, and on and on and on. So the land of Ephraim was not the land of Judah. In order for the Ephraimites to go to Judah, to Jerusalem, they had to leave their land. So when you go out of your land, you're going to be blessed. When you come back in your land, because you're obeying my command, I'm watching over it. You don't have to worry about it because I got it. But let's keep reading. Jehovah promised to bless them in the land and to bless them outside of their land. He would bless them when they travel. Where I come from, they used to pray traveling mercies. Anybody ever hear that? I just pray traveling mercies. May the angels of Jehovah encamp around your vehicle. This is what he's saying. When you go on your way, when you travel, I'm going to be with you. My angels are going to encamp about you. And David, he believe it was David, where when Yeshua was tempted, where he had been taken to the pinnacle of the temple and say, throw yourself down from here, for it has been commanded, it has been spoken that he will give his angels charge over you lest you dash your feet against a stone. In other words, Father is going to catch you. That's what he's saying. See, and psalmist is really coming from here. See, when your ways please Jehovah, he makes your enemies at peace with you. When you delight yourself in him, he gives you the desires of your heart. What are your heart's desire? What is your heart's desire? Most people don't have a clue. What is it you want? Well, I don't know. I just want to be happy. Well, what does that look like? Where do you want to be happy? With whom you want to be happy? And what does happiness look like? Because if you don't know what your happiness look like, you will connect yourself with someone who has a different view of happiness, and their happiness will make you unhappy. Do you hear what I'm saying? Because you've connected with somebody who you thought would make you happy, but you don't even know what your happiness look like. You follow me? I mean, if you don't like going to the bars and you connect with the musician who play in bars, that's not going to work out very well, is it? So you've got to set up a standard. If you don't know what the desires of your heart is, then you're liable to find yourself in a situation that now you're doing everything you can to get out of. And here's where it sounds like, oh, Father has blessed me with a man. Oh, he's heard by prayer. He's given me a husband. Year later, he's the devil. That's what it is. It's just plain, pure evil. Now, wait a minute. What happened? Same person. You're the same person. That's the same person. What happened? You didn't know what you wanted. And you're settled. And people settle because they don't know what they want. They assume they know what they want, but they don't have a plan for what they want. And when they get what they think they want, they realize it's not what they don't, it's what they don't want. See, people know what they don't want, but most people don't have a clue as to what they want. It's no different than the children of Israel. You know, they were looking for a prophet, but they didn't understand the Torah. They didn't understand it. Now, you say, well, hold it. I'm telling you. Because over the course of time, especially up to the time Yeshua came on the scene, men had begun to add and take away. They added to and they diminished, and they came up with all of these laws that were based on the law, and they became traditions. The traditions of the elders, the traditions of men, the laws of the Pharisees, the teachings, the leaven of the Pharisees, the leaven of the Sadducees, the leaven of Herod, all of these teachings. You see? And Yeshua plainly told them, says, listen, folks, you guys, Moses gave you all the law, but none of you are keeping it. Your worship is in vain because you're teaching the tradition of men as though for commandments, and you're making my commands of no effect. You're doing all these lofty prayers. You want people to give you the chief seats in the synagogues. You want folks to call you rabbis. You want to pray to the east. You're doing all of these things to be looked upon as men, and it looks pretty pious. It looks pretty religious. Yeshua comes along. He doesn't have all of that, and they said, this man, he's not like them. And instead of them really repenting to get to know the prophet that they were looking for, they did the opposite and tried to kill him or have him killed. Let me tell you something. That spirit is still alive today because people are entering into the traditions of men, the religions, and they want people to tell them what to do. They want folks to control them. And they're getting exactly what they want. But let me tell you something about that mindset. A person who is looking for leadership to tell them what they want is no different to tell them what they need or to tell them what they need to do is no different than the people who came out of Egypt who decided that we got a leader, but we don't like him. We know what it is we want to do. We can hear from God for ourselves. So now you've got this issue going on. And it culminates, can I give you a good example? Moses is in the wilderness. He comes down from the mountain. The people have pushed Aaron to make them some gods. Aaron makes them some gods. Right? Moses see what's going on. God's father says, Moses, you need to go now. Because there's some stuff going on. And really, you know, I'm going to tell you, you're dealing with some hard-headed, stiff-necked people that I really want to kill and just start all over. Moses says, you know, of course. But he comes down. He sees what's going on. And he causes the calf to be destroyed. He grinds it up, as we know. He makes people do things. He comes to a point to where he draws a line. He says, okay, those of you who are with me, I want you to stand over here. Those of you who are with them, y'all stand over there. Now, the people who were with Moses stood with Moses. The others, what happened? The ground opened up and swallowed them. Now, what happened to the people that were with Moses? Moses, yeah, look at what you did to God's people. They blamed Moses. They blamed Moses for their disobedience. And this is what we do. We blame people for ours. You give somebody counsel. I've given counsel. Folks go and do the opposite of the counsel you give them. and blame you. Well, I told you, I mean, and now I'm responsible? How is it that I'm responsible for your disobedience? And get this. I told people, well, I'm not going to tell you what to do. This is something you need to pray about and get blamed for that. Well, I asked you and you wouldn't tell me. It's your fault. You see, because people are looking for someone else to blame for their issues instead of assuming the responsibility. See, the moment you assume responsibility for your life, you become responsible for knowing what Jehovah expects of you. You're not putting that on somebody else. Every year, Michael puts out a beautiful calendar, wonderful calendar. And folks, when is Passover? Are you going to tell us when Passover is? At what point in your walk did it become my responsibility to tell you when Passover is? You have access to the same information. If I get a calendar, why can't you? Because that's not important. See, you do what's important to you. You get up, you go to work. That's important. You pay the bills that are important to you. The ones that you can do without, you let them go. When you're in a crunch and you've got to decide which bill is going to be paid and which bill is not going to be paid, you decide. You develop a plan. So why do we leave the important things of knowing the times, the seasons that he has appointed to someone else? You know why? Because we're putting that responsibility on someone else. And this is what happens year after year after year. Well, it's too late for me to get the time off. Why is it too late? Because you didn't make plans. Whose fault is that? Well, you didn't tell me what time. You didn't tell me. Year after year. I go through this every year, folks. Every year. Folks want you to tell them. That's your responsibility. Your walk with the Almighty is your responsibility. It's not mine. I am not responsible for your salvation. I'm not responsible for your deliverance. I'm not responsible for your healing. I'm not responsible for you. I'm responsible to teach you what thus saith Jehovah, and it's your responsibility whether or not you're going to live it. My hands are clean. So I'm not going to argue with people. There it is. And see, you know why I don't argue with people? Because I looked at Moses. I watched Moses and I studied Moses. And Moses was a powerful, he was the first one that actually saw the manifestations of the Spirit in powerful ways. Moses saw stuff no other human being on the face of the earth saw. He had a relationship with the Father that was even seemingly more powerful than the relationship Abraham had. Moses did not shrink from Pharaoh. He didn't lie or tell him one thing. Moses confronted Pharaoh week after week, day after day. He took hard-headed, stiff-necked people by the multitude through a maze of dangers, toils, and snares, following the leading and the voice of the Almighty, interceding on behalf of the people talking to Jehovah face to face, spending all kinds of time in the tabernacle with the Almighty. I mean, Father, he calls Moses up to the mountain and he don't let anybody else come up there. Moses is spending 40 days and 40 nights on the mountain on one situation and 40 days and 40 nights on another situation, and he is seeing the power of the Almighty manifest like no one else before or after. And yet, Moses, who led these people out of Egypt to the promised land, couldn't go in. Why? Because of the people. And these same hard-headed, stiff-necked people, the Father wanted to destroy them. Moses should have got out of the way. See, I'll get out the way. I'm serious. I am getting out the way. If you don't want to listen to YeHoVaH, hey, I got you. See ya. You hear me? It's a dangerous thing for a person to play God to a people. And people are looking to set up their God called the pastor. And they listen to their God when he says don't listen to him. Well, he said I'm supposed to keep the Sabbath holy. Listen, Jesus Christ died and set us free from the law. You don't have to keep the law. All you have to do is believe in Jesus. Yeah, Pastor. Why? Because people are putting their faith in their pastor. Their pastor becomes their God. They do what he says regardless to what he says. And that's an awesome responsibility. See, Jehovah said he's jealous. He's extremely jealous. I believe it was the jealousy of Jehovah that kept Moses from going in. He says, Moses, now I got a lot of respect for you because you've been a good servant. You've done some hard things. I've asked you to do some hard things. So, I'm going to at least let you look over and see it. But you're not going in it. I owe you that much. I'm going to show you what I was calling you to bring these people into, but because you decided to listen to them and allow them to frustrate you that you would not do what I say, people will frustrate you. And everybody's got a vision for your ministry, but they have no vision for theirs. They want to tell you how you should do things, how you should teach, how you should preach, how you should live. Jehovah has put it very clearly. He says, I'm going to bless you when you go out. All you got to do is learn to listen to me and stop listening to all those other voices. See, my sheep know my voice, and the voice of strangers, they're not going to follow. We need to learn the voice of the Almighty, and he's spoken to us. And yet people are ignoring his voice for the voice of pastors and apostles and prophets and reverends and rabbis and you name it. When they go up to the feast, he would prosper them on their journey. He would protect them from seen and unseen danger. He would cause his angels to watch over them and bring them safely. He would cause their property to be safe in their absence and not allow anyone to covet their land. And then blessing number 13, Jehovah shall cause thine enemies that rise up against thee to be smitten before thy face. They shall come out against thee one way and flee before thee 7 ways. Now, this just came to me, and so I'm going to flow with it. Many of you don't know that being in this building, we've had 2 tenants who've come and gone. The last tenant was hell-bent on making our life miserable. He did some things that I tell you, I literally wanted to do something physically to this man. I wanted to hurt him. I allowed my mind to go even through the process of having somebody else hurt him. And the Father said to me one day, he said, the reason why he feels that way about you is because he feels that you've disrespected him. And I'm searching my heart and thinking, where have I disrespected him? I couldn't find it. He says, what you need to do is go apologize to him. Now, you ever been in a situation where people say, well, I don't need to apologize. I didn't do nothing wrong. Well, the scripture says, agree with thine adversary quickly while you're in the way with him. And I know Father wasn't my adversary. He was really showing me what was going on in this person's heart as to why he was making life miserable for us. So I figure I'm going to flow with this. Father says you need to do it. I know his voice. I'm going to go do it, even though I don't feel that it's something that I need to be doing it. But yet, if he said I need to do it, I need to do it with sincerity. So I go over to him and I ask him, I says, man, listen, please forgive me for disrespecting you. It wasn't, hey, if I disrespected you, I didn't mean it. If I disrespected you, forgive me for it. No. Please forgive me for disrespecting you. I said to him, when you first came here and I told you that I'm going to be praying for your prosperity, I meant that then. I mean that now. And that broke. This guy flipped over backwards to accommodate us. His girlfriend, whose father is a beef, who runs a beef company, brought us steaks. He's going out of his way for the people here. And there's testimonies in this room. And it was all about the voice of Jehovah saying, he feels you've disrespected him. Here's what you need to do. I followed the instruction that he gave me, and just like that, my heart went from wanting to have him wiped out to having compassion. He will cause your enemies. He will take care of them. They're gone now. Now, I bring this up because they owe me some money. They owe this ministry some money. The landlord calls me last week saying he's going to take them to court and want to know how much money did he owe me. Now, I'm not taking them to court, but the landlord is. I've let it go. And now the father is looking at redeeming the funds that should have been paid. You hear what I'm saying? See, Father will make your enemies at peace with you. And if they refuse to come into peace, if they refuse to come into some covenant arrangement, agreement, he will wipe them out. You just don't take matters into your own hands. He says, I'll cause them, your enemies that rise up against you, to be smitten before your face. They shall come out against you one way, but they'll flee before you seven. And see, even in that, there is some, any of us who, well, when you read and you research the Torah, you'll find that whenever there was a war, chances are, as you were defeating your enemies and they ran off, what did they leave behind? There's the spoils. You follow me? When Jehovah brought Pharaoh down, he told the children of Israel, ask them for their gold, ask them for their silver. They went from poor slaves who had been denied any kind of wage, who had been treated lower than dirt, to as wealthy as Egypt was. And it wasn't because of something they did. It was because of what he did. Jehovah had spoken to them earlier in Exodus these words, 3 times thou shalt keep a feast unto me in the year. Thou shalt keep the feast of unleavened bread. Thou shalt eat unleavened bread 7 days, as I commanded thee in the time appointed of the month of Abib. For in it thou camest out from Egypt, and none shall appear before me empty. And the feast of harvest, the first fruits of thy labors, which thou hast sown in the field, and the feast of ingathering, which is in the end of the year. So you see, he's connecting these pilgrimages to the harvest. When thou hast gathered in thy labors out of the field, 3 times in the year, all thy males shall appear before Jehovah, Elohim. Thou shalt not offer the blood of my sacrifice with leavened bread, neither shall the fat of my sacrifice remain until the morning. The first of the first fruits of thy land thou shalt bring into the house of Jehovah. Now, I was watching a really weird, I watch documentaries. I like watching stuff that other people might find pretty boring. And on one particular day, I was watching these individuals who compete to grow the largest pumpkin. Riveting. Because it's like, I cannot believe how much money, how much time, how much energy these pumpkins were treated like royalty. They had their own house. They did. He built shelters for the pumpkin. And so I'm watching this, I'm fascinated, because their goal is to win a prize. Sound familiar? Their goal is to win the prize of having the most prized pumpkin. And all of the benefits, you may not think anything about that, but when you get into the Guinness Book of World Records, there's a whole lot that comes with that. And all of that effort, it's like the person who tries out for the Olympics and they make the sacrifice because their goal is not the bronze, their goal is not the silver, their goal is the gold. That's what our goal should be. But when you go for the gold, that means you're willing to make the sacrifices other people aren't willing to make. And I'm watching the sacrifices, and they're interviewing, because these are guys, these are not women. These are guys, and they interviewed the wives. You know, the wives have come to the conclusion, this man loved them pumpkins, so I just stay out of his way. They take all our resources and put them into the pumpkin. And they're treating the pumpkin, and he's, a couple of guys out there hugging the pumpkin, taking pictures with the pumpkin, talking about how much they love the pumpkin. I mean, the pumpkin is the center of their world. And then they had situations where the pumpkins didn't make it. Drought. Devastating. And then I'm watching another documentary. They're talking about the Dust Bowl. And they come to find out that these farmers in a certain area in Texas, Colorado, that the reason why they were experiencing the kind of problems that they were having is because the farmers introduced tractors. This is the research. They spent all of this money in this research to find that when the farmers brought the tractors in, and the tractors and all of this machinery was turning over the dirt so fast, instead of the hoist and the plow that turned it over slowly, that the plow and the tractor was coming in and it was just turning the land into dust. And pretty soon the land stopped yielding. And instead of having a crop, they had dust. All because of man introducing something into the land. Point is, Jehovah says, listen, when we do things his way, he's going to make sure that we are taken care of. The first of the first fruits of thy land thou shalt bring into the house of Jehovah thy God. Thou shalt not see the kid in his mother's milk. Behold, I send an angel before thee. And this is where we want to be. Because, see, I believe today in angels. Now, I don't worship angels. I don't pray to angels, and I'm not looking for angels. But I know they exist. How can you believe in demons and not believe in angels? How can you? How can you think that there are demonic forces and not understand that there are angelic beings? Before I send an angel before thee to keep thee in the way and to bring thee into the place which I have prepared. Beware of him and obey his voice. Provoke him not, for he will not pardon your transgressions, for my name is in him. But if thou shalt indeed obey his voice and do all that I speak, then I will be an enemy unto thine enemies and an adversary unto thine adversaries. And that's where we want. We want Father fighting our battles. And we want to listen to his voice because he'll tell us how to deal with the situations that we're facing. Instead of you trying to figure out how to take somebody out, he'll show you how to make them your footstool. For mine angel shall go before thee and bring thee in unto the Amorites and the Hittites and the Perizzites and the Canaanites, the Hivites and the Jebusites. Now these are the very people that caused the children of Israel from going into the land in the first place. When those spies went in and they saw those Anakins and they saw these other people, they said, you know, we can't do what he says we can do. You hear me? And I will cut them off. Who's going to cut them off? Think about some of the people who have been your enemies. Where are they now? Thou shalt not bow down to their gods, nor serve them, nor do after their works, but thou shalt utterly overthrow them and quite break down their images. And you shall serve Jehovah your God, and he shall bless thy bread and thy water, and I will take sickness. I will take sickness away from the midst of thee. Now, you got to understand something, folks. When the children was in the wilderness, it didn't mean that sickness wasn't in the midst of them. Father he sent his word. He sent his word and healed them. When they walked in his word, guess what? When they did wrong and the snakes came in and began to bite them, and Moses put up a serpent, put up a bronze serpent. Those who look upon them, they will be healed. Moses followed the instructions, and what happened? The people got delivered. They got healed. The same thing he said, Yeshua says, just as Moses was in the wilderness, just as he was lifted up the bronze serpent in the wilderness, the Son of Man must be lifted up. The same healing back then is still going on today. There shall nothing cast thou their young, nor be barren in thy land. The number of thy days I will fulfill. Now, I found today that there are two reasons why people are barren. One is because they choose to be. There are people who choose to be barren. They choose not to have children. And they do whatever it takes, whether it means taking oral contraceptives or go through some form of surgery. And then there are others who, for whatever reason or another, are unable to have children. Now, if a person is unable to have children, that's a difference from a person who chooses not to have children. So for the person who is unable to have children, Father says, there shall nothing cast their young nor be barren. In other words, when you walk in the commands that I'm sharing with you today, and you desire to have a child even though you've never had one, just as he brought Elizabeth a child in her old age, and just as he brought Sarah a child in her old age, who was barren most of their life. Sarah was so desiring to have a child simply to fulfill the promise that Jehovah made to Abraham that she offered her handmaiden to Abraham just so he could bring forth the child, because she couldn't see how she would after all the trying they did and never happened. But his promise, and this is his promise. This is his promise to us. I will send my fear before thee, and I will destroy all the people to whom thou shalt come, and I will make all thine enemies turn their backs unto thee, all of them. The key for you and I is that we don't get ahead of him, that we don't take matters into our own hands. That's our problem. Because when we walk by sight, we don't see how, I've prayed about this situation and God hasn't done anything. It's time for me to take this matter into my own hands. That's why he hasn't done anything. Because that's what's been in your heart. I'm going to give you a chance, but I don't think you're going to do anything about it. So I'm going to give you a chance, and if you don't do something by then, I got this. You see, folks, Father knows our heart. It's not what comes out of your mouth. He searches the heart. He knows what's in there, and you need to search it. And I will send hornets before thee, which shall drive out the Hivites, the Canaanites, the Hittites from before thee. Now, the interesting thing is that Father's saying, I'm going to drive them out, meaning the people will come into the land that used to have people there and nobody is there. It's like a ghost town. Where'd everybody go? I will not drive them out from before thee in 1 year, lest the land become desolate and the beasts of the fields multiply against thee. By little and little I will drive them out from before thee until thou be increased and inherit the land. I will set thy bounds from the Red Sea, even unto the sea of the Philistines, and from the desert unto the river. For I will deliver the inhabitants of the land unto your hand, and thou shalt drive them out before thee. And I'll stop there. Next week we'll pick up on 14. I wanted to get a little further than this, but time is, we'll pick up on number 14 next week. I want to take a moment and pray. And then I'm going to give you an opportunity to give. And hopefully we can get a few words from Brother Michael, if he's up to it. And then we're going to give you opportunities to ask questions if you have any. But I feel a strong sense of desire to pray for Jehovah's people. Part of what this message is for, and these series of messages on true biblical prosperity and the 28 blessings of Deuteronomy 28, is to really build people's faith. I'm amazed at how many people don't have the faith to prosper, to walk in the blessings of the Almighty. But people look at what they have and what's in their hands, and they make statements like, I don't have this and I can't do that, which is totally contrary to what the Father says. I mean, if we truly believe that the Father owns everything, that he's the creator, the maker of heaven and earth, then why would he withhold anything from us? He said he wouldn't. Everything that we have need of, he's already provided. It's just a matter of where is it? As I look over the scriptures, I see where Jehovah provided over and over and over and over for his people. His people are not to have need for nothing. And those folks who suffered and struggled, it was because oftentimes of their own mismanagement, their own disobedience, or they lacked the skill and the knowledge. You see, there are several reasons why people are destroyed. One is my people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. That's ignorance. Ignorance is not a bad thing. I mean, it's not a bad word. Ignorance simply means you lack knowledge. You lack knowledge because you lack information. If you give people the right information and they apply the right information, then they won't lack. They'll have whatever it is that they were lacking because now they've got the right information. They know how to manage. But then there's the other side, and this is the most difficult piece. Because for most of our lives, we've rejected knowledge. He says, my people are destroyed for lack of knowledge, but because thou have rejected knowledge. See, and whether you know it or not, folks, every last one of us who have come into the faith, the Messianic Hebrews faith, every last one of us at some point in our lives rejected the Sabbath. We rejected the commands. Some of us are still rejecting many of the commands that are in the Bible. For one or two reasons. They don't know them, they don't understand them, they're not researching them, or they read them and they say that doesn't apply to me. Because they reject knowledge. The most difficult people for me to deal with is those who reject knowledge, because these people find excuses in arguments. They become masterful at finding excuses, finding arguments, debating, droshing. I'm not interested in droshing with you about whether healing is for today. I'm not interested in droshing with you about whether prosperity is for today. If Jehovah prospered people then, either he changed or he's still doing it today. So if he's still doing it today, then why am I not prospering? Now remember, when we started that, we said that everybody's view of prosperity is different. Your view of prosperity, my view of prosperity, your calling, my calling, other people's calling is very different. And so you have to operate in the realm, in the area of where your calling has been or is. But dealing with people who reject knowledge, that's the most difficult group. And people have good reasons in their mind to reject knowledge. And the main reason why people reject knowledge and will not walk in faith is fear of disappointment. Those of us who have been disappointed in this area, been lied to, been taken advantage of, been abused, we trusted and we got misused. Those individuals who have been disappointed have made a vow that they're never going to allow people to hurt them again. They'll never put themselves in a situation to ever be hurt again. They'll never allow anybody to take advantage of them again. And what they've done is they've built up a wall, they've built up a fortress, and they said nothing is going to penetrate. Words are penetrated, but it's going to be filtered through all of this rejection, through all of this hurt. And when I hear something that requires a little faith from me, and it requires the possibility of me stepping out in faith, well, what if it don't happen? What if I step out of the boat and I sink? What if I believe and it doesn't come to pass? There's another hurt. There's another disappointment. There's another spirit of rejection. I can't live with another rejection. I can't live with any more hurt. So it's easier and it's better for me to not believe it than it is to receive it. And I say to you, I would much rather step out the boat and sink than not step out at all, because I might not. I would much rather put my faith in the Father and not see the manifestation. This is why I keep praying for people to be healed. This is why I keep praying for people to be delivered. There's some people I've prayed for a number of times, and I'll pray for them every time they ask me. And every time I pray, I'm believing in faith that they're going to be delivered, that they're going to be healed. Every time I pray for people in their finances, every time I pray for people in favor in jobs and business, I'm praying and I'm believing just as fervently as I know how that what I'm praying for, I'm believing is going to happen. I've done my part. And that's all you can do. But I'm not going to doubt. And the way I know I'm not going to doubt is I'm going to put a guard over my tongue. I'm not going to speak words that nullify that which I have prayed. I'm believing, Father, to get everything that we need. Why would I sit around and say, well, you know, I don't know if it's going to happen? What do you mean you don't know if it's going to happen? Well, you know, we've been waiting on these supporters and these partners to come up, and it hasn't happened yet. So I'm 53 years old. I didn't know I was going to get to be 53. Am I 53? 54. I'm 54 years old. I mean, if you would have told me when I was 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, there are many people out there who don't believe they're going to live past 25. But see, here's the thing that I got for me. My mom is still living, and my dad lived to be a ripe old age, so I got genes of longevity. But what about people whose parents died young? What about people who have heart disease in the family, diabetes in the family? See, you've got people who have already made up in their mind, because of my genes, I'm going to die at an early age. And this is what's in the heart. You've got people, well, I've had prayer. I've had all kinds of prayer. I had Benny Hinn pray for me and nothing happened. You follow what I'm saying? So, I love the faith of the woman who had an issue of blood for 30 years. She did everything she knew to do, and she kept doing it. And here come this Yeshua. Well, if I could just touch it. If he is who he say he is, all I got to do is just grab a hold of his tzitzis, grab a hold of the hem of his garment, and I will be whole. See, we need that kind of faith, that 30-year faith. You know, that faith that I don't care. Well, you know, I went to this doctor. I'm broke. I have no more money to pay doctors. My inheritance is gone. I've sold everything. I've put my faith in the doctors, and I'm still not healed, but I haven't given up. I'll never give up, because I'm believing I'm going to be healed. I know I'm going to be healed. But Mama, you've had this condition for 30 years, so. But shut up. Don't speak. If you don't have faith, keep your mouth shut. See, that's the kind of boldness you have to have. If you don't have faith to believe like I'm believing, you know, I'm up here, you down there. And if I keep hanging out with you, guess what? Either you're going to be up here with me, and it doesn't look like you're willing to make the journey. See, I'm not going to be hanging out with people who are constantly speaking death and destruction and gloom and doom and doubt and unbelief. You want to speak that, then there's a crowd over there for you. I'm not the one. I'm surrounding myself with people who have faith to believe. And guess what? That's how that road just gets narrower and narrower and narrower, because I'm shutting it down. And you're going to have to shut it down. Shalom, saints. Tithing and giving first fruit offerings are critical parts of the believer's faith, and has its foundation back in Genesis 4:4, when Abel brought of the firstlings of his flock and of the fat thereof. And Jehovah had respect unto Abel and to his offering. Abel was commended by YeHoVaH in Hebrews 11:4, where it states that by faith Abel offered unto God a more excellent sacrifice than Cain, by which he obtained witness that he was righteous, God testifying of his gifts, and by it he being dead yet speaketh. Solomon said in Proverbs 3:9-10, honor Jehovah with thy substance and with the first fruits of all thine increase. So shall your barns be filled with plenty, and your presses shall burst out with new wine. The prophet Malachi wrote in chapter 3, verse 11 and 12, to bring ye all the tithe into the storehouse, that there may be meat in mine house, and prove me now herewith, says Jehovah of hosts, if I will not open you the windows of heaven, and pour you out a blessing, that there should not be room enough to receive it. And I will rebuke the devourer for your sakes, and he shall not destroy the fruits of your ground, neither shall your vine cast her fruit before the time in the field, says Jehovah of hosts. And all nations shall call you blessed, for you shall be a delightsome land, saith Jehovah of hosts. When we tithe and give offerings consistently in obedience to Jehovah's commandments, we can count on him to keep his promises to us and consistently meet all of our needs. It is our Father's desire to bless you. However, it begins with you and your act of obedience to tithe and give offerings. Do it today. Shalom.
For more information, visit www.arthurbaileyministries.com or call 888-899-1479. House of Israel International Services is made possible through financial contributions from brothers and sisters like you. Thank you.